Are you ready to say goodbye to the constant ups and downs of the artist income roller coaster? Whether you're a full-time artist who wants to increase and stabilize your income, a part-time musician who wants to go full-time, or a hobbyist who needs to fund your passion projects, this podcast will equip you with the tools, resources, and inspiration to make it happen. My name is Bree Noble. I'm a musician, best-selling author, and educator whose mission is to help musicians like you to increase the income you're already making and tap into new income streams so you can create a more diverse, stable, reliable income from music and finally ditch the starving artist mentality. Now let's dive into the Profitable Musician Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Bree Noble. I am so happy to be here with Tory Smith. He is the manager of a couple of really successful and profitable, I might add, cover bands, as well as he works with Black Box Prompter, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's a really cool gadget that he was showing me that's really helpful for performers. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But first, I'd just love to have your background, Tory. How did you get into music? How did you get into cover bands? What have you done up until now as far as music is concerned?
Well, first of all, Bree, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your show. Wow, where do I start? Gosh, when something's in your blood, it's in your blood. It's just that innate feeling. And I have been, I'm a child of the 80s, youngest of three boys, and both my older brothers were always, jamming some music on their stereo, full blast, whether it was Duran Duran, Rush, Metallica, just a lot of top 40 stuff from the 80s. And then as I got into high school and college, 90s and grunge and, alternative music kind of became the norm. Got into that as well. Learned to play guitar at 15. And my guitar teacher kind of steeped me in the blues and said, if you're going to play rock, you need to learn blues, all that. And I've just always had an affinity for music, really of all kinds. And from there, as I got into college, and got old enough to drink, started going to the bars, and I would see these cover band musicians, and I would be like, wow. And it's super talented, and they would cover these songs I recognized, and I was mesmerized. I was like, "This is the coolest thing!" And people would tip them, and then they play another song and another song, and I'd be singing along, and everyone is just smiling ear to ear. And at a young age of, I don't know, 21, 22, I was like, man, I wish I was good enough to do what they do. I would like to do that someday. And, I hadn't picked up a guitar for, several years, after college, and decided to blow the dust off it, blew the dust off the guitar and started playing a little bit more. And then I found out my brother, super shy guy, shyest, most introverted dude you'll ever meet, had a gift of singing. And I was like, wow. Do you remember that old commercial that said it was United Negro College Fund? He said, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Mm-hmm. I felt that way about my brother. A voice like his was a terrible thing to waste. And so anyway, I'm giving you kind of the unabridged version, but the abridged version is I was like, hey, man, I'm starting a cover band. Do you want to join? He's like, heck yeah. And we went through a few bands, and then we finally locked into one about 5 years ago, which was an 80s band. Got good enough where we could start getting gigs, and then COVID hit. And then nobody was hiring for nothing. And I said, guys, let's use this time to get better. And we did. And the dust settled and the floodgates started opening. And now we're playing like every week. And that was 5 years ago. And so we're very, very, we learned a lot. I am the manager of that band. And I also have a 90s country band as well that he sings in. And between both bands, we're gigging 2-3 times a week. Now, keep in mind, we're hobbyists. We don't consider ourselves professionals, although people say if you earn money doing something, it kind of makes you a professional. So I guess in a way we're semi-pro, but we're not touring or anything. But gosh, I tell people it is the coolest side hustle that I can imagine. You're getting people to reminisce about their youth. They forget about life for a little while. They smile ear to ear, and they just want you to come back, and they want more. And then we can actually make decent side money doing it. So anyway, that's in a nutshell. That's kind of how we got started.
Yeah, I'm sure you can make decent side money. And the thing is, focusing on 80s and 90s, you're really hitting those people that are like in their stride as far as their money making ability, right? So you're hitting people like me, and Gen Xers and early millennials that have come into like their professional prime and they've got money to spend. And if you are bringing back memories for them for that music, oh my gosh, they're going to be so thankful, so grateful, and so willing to give you money. So we were talking a little bit before about tipping. And I know there's like kind of this different tipping culture in different parts of the country. So I'd love to know like what you know about that and what are the best and easiest and like least weird ways to ask people for tips.
Absolutely. Gosh, got lots of ideas there. So I've got some, I'd say anecdotal data. It's not, we haven't done a poll of, thousands of people, but let me kind of share with you my own personal experiences, at least in the North Texas area. So I live in the Dallas Fort Worth area and I think we're one of the largest, per capita places for cover bands and tribute bands because I know we have like over 200 of them, maybe 300 plus active ones, all within
That's a lot.
within a 40-mile radius. Yeah. I mean, we have Taylor Swift tributes, Journey tributes, Prince tributes. My guitar player actually just he was in the Blake Shelton tribute, the only one of its kind. He actually met Blake. He played in the Blake Shelton tribute. So lots of tributes, lots of covers, and just totally love it. Obviously there's going to be Nashville. Nashville's going to have plenty of cover bands and whatnot. But outside of that, I'd say Dallas is up there in terms of just the amount of cover bands. Now, tipping is very much the norm in a public venue, bar, club, pub. Tip jars, very common in Texas and other parts of the U.S. Now, I'm a part of a very active Facebook group, the largest Facebook group of its kind for cover bands called Cover Band Central. I'll give a shout out to Steve who runs that, good friend of mine. He plays on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. There has been some chatter lately about tipping, and how do you what are some of the creative ways to get tips without being tacky? And a lot of people are chiming, like from the UK, they're like, "Tip, how dare you?" What a blasphemy. It's like, why would anybody ask for a tip or a handout? So it is a cultural thing, and it does vary. But I would say in certain parts of the country, it is acceptable. I've had it to where we maybe forgot the tip jar at home, and people are coming up and they're looking like, "Where's the tip jar?" And then they're just throwing money on stage. And so that's a cool thing when that happens. But I did say this is for public gigs. This is not for private gigs, obviously, not for corporate gigs, not for city festivals. That you don't do. That's a no-no. Because it obviously is a reflection of the host who looks like they're too cheap to pay the band if you're asking for a handout. So definitely, big no-no. Don't ever do tip jar at a private or corporate event. But public events, at least in Texas, very much expected, very much the norm.
I think it makes sense because if you're at a bar or a restaurant, it's kind of like waitresses and things like that, where busboys and stuff that where they get tipped as part of the deal. Like it doesn't,
Correct.
like you said, it doesn't make the restaurant look bad that
Mhm.
you're taking tips. So
Yeah.
that does make sense. Is there an easy way to do digital tips, and does that seem to be getting any traction?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there are a couple of apps out there that there's one that comes to mind called MySet. I actually talked to those guys. I think they're in the Nashville area as well, where it's a QR code, and you basically upload your set list, and you say, "Hey, do you have a request?" You scan the QR code, and you can see what songs the band can play, and like a jukebox, right? You can request a specific song, and when you request a song, you tip the band, and it's all handled digitally, right? Through like you tie it to a Venmo or an Apple Pay or something like that. And then what happens is somebody on stage has the app and it says, "Oh, Jennifer in the audience just requested Sweet Caroline. Hey, Jennifer, this one's for you." But they could see what song they requested, and that's actually that exact feature I just described. And we'll get to the black box prompter here in just a moment. But that is a feature we're going to be adding to our prompter later this year. So folks from the audience can scan a QR code, see your set list, and be able to tip on the fly. So everybody
That's
wins.
super cool. I love that. And I mean, if you don't have that, you can kind of do your other, your personalized version of that. You could have a QR code that, sent them to some kind of landing page or, a PayPal or something like that where they can tip. And then, it can say on there like, go, we have a box in the corner of the stage. Go put your request over here. I mean, there's ways to
Sure.
do this that's very crude ways, and there's really
Hmm.
slick ways, which the way you're talking about sounds really cool. But if you're just getting started and want to try it out, you could do that. I just wanted to address this because I know that, you said you guys are hobby artists and all that. You love cover bands. And there are definitely those artists who are trying to be original artists who
Hmm.
either, right or wrong, they feel like cover bands are either like a step down or like something I have to do to make money until my original music gets off the ground. And, do you find that there's some people that play in cover bands as a stepping stone, or they're trying to get on to something else? And I'm guessing the best cover band players are people that just love playing in cover bands. Like they're not trying to do something different. What's your experience around that?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I've got some friends who are original artists, musician friends, and they are, and I asked them, I was like, "Do you play just originals or covers?" And they're like, I have to play covers, otherwise they won't give me a gig." If you own a club or a venue, I mean, obviously, if you have a big following, that's different. But most of us, most of the original artists don't. I mean, that's why they're, doing the grind. But to answer your question, that it kind of comes with the territory. Most original artists I've ever talked to, yes, they absolutely play covers. They have to get their foot in the door with covers. And they're genuinely having a good time playing them. And they'll start out with a few covers, and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to go ahead and throw an original one here," and they'll sprinkle them in throughout the night, to where they're not going to do three originals back to back because you'll lose audience. But what I've seen happen is they'll insert these originals, and people will be like, "Hey, that song wasn't bad, but I love the covers. I recognize the covers. I want to see this band again or this artist again." And then they'll come back, to that venue or to wherever they're playing next, and then of course you play your original again, and then over time, it sticks to your memory. And I think that's a good way of getting your foot in the door is, no shame in playing covers as an original artist, no shame in that at all. But I would tread carefully because again, if you're the club owner, your job is to keep butts in the seat, as many butts in the seat as possible,
Yep.
right?
And I
So
think that's true. If people are coming out for you and that you're doing mostly covers and throwing in a few originals, if they keep coming back, those originals start to become almost like covers. They become familiar to you. You're
yes.
like, oh, I love this song. I remember this song from before, and then you start to associate memories with that song. And that's really what covers are about, right? They're like bringing up memories. And that's what I think that maybe musicians don't realize what they're doing when they do cover songs. Like sometimes I just feel like I have to do this for the money or whatever. I think you're creating a bond with people and bringing up these memories and delivering something like a gift to them in a way. And so I wanted to throw that out there because I think a lot of times covers get a bad rap. And I know when I go to shows and people do a cover, I usually love it, especially if they have their own spin on it, right? Like if maybe they
Oh yeah.
change the genre of the cover and it's like their
Uh-huh.
own cool take on it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a number of bands that do that very same thing. What I was going to say was I talked to a number of folks that were in original bands, and some made it to the radio and they became mainstream, or maybe they're a one hit wonder, and now they're in a cover band because they say the cover bands they get so many. They're successful cover bands. Okay, they're very good at what they do in the top 10%, but they said they get more gigs and higher pay doing the cover band thing than the
Mm.
original thing. But they love music so much they don't stop playing. So I have seen that too, and I'm hoping anybody that listening who's an original artist, just if you don't make it as original artist, it doesn't mean you have to hang it up on the shelf.
I think
There's
that's
still
true, for
opportunities.
sure. There's so many amazing musicians in cover bands, and maybe they just don't want to do music full time. They don't want to deal with the grind, but they still want to do, use their talent. I do think also if people really don't like the marketing part or really don't want to do it, not that cover bands shouldn't market, but like, you often being paid to be at this particular place and that place is doing a lot of the marketing for you. So, I'm not saying you shouldn't have an email list and you shouldn't promote and all that stuff, but it's probably a little less stress. So if you're that kind of musician or you just don't want to give up on music, I think cover bands are a good way to go.
100%. Yeah.
So how about you were talking about how your focus is really to get your cover bands a little bit more into like private events, corporate events, things like that, because you can get paid more. What is your strategy for that, or what have you found that works the best for that?
Yeah, so when we first started the 80s band 5 years ago, I really had no idea what frequency we would play. I told the guys, I don't know where this is going to go. I'll be happy if we play once or twice a month, anywhere, And then after COVID was kind of, in the back seat, we started, getting some gigs. We started investing in video, and I would hire a quasi pro videographer with a 4K camera, who would shoot some good video with a good microphone and get some good angles. And that was probably my biggest expense, is really investing in video. So the videography as well as the sound quality, different angles, not just on one person. It's not just an iPhone sitting on a tripod. It's actually, somebody with a gimbal and moving around. And I mean, nowadays it's not very expensive to do. And some of these video people are very good at what they do, and they don't charge a lot, kind of depending on where you're from. So that was kind of my big thing. We had a very we're very fortunate that we have. I was able to cherry pick some really, really good, talented musicians that know their stuff frontwards and backwards, and I wanted to build that around as the foundation for my brother, the singer. And then magic started to happen. People started noticing, wow, these guys are really, really good, and I was amazed, And so then, we would pack the bars, and the club owners are like, hey, can I get you on a 6-week rotation here? And I was like, yeah, I would. That, man, what an honor. I'll be happy to. But from the public gigs, we would have people after the show pull us aside and say, hey, do you do privates? And absolutely, we do private. He goes, oh, my company's having a holiday party this holiday season. Do you guys do corporate events? Oh, absolutely, And so those public events, of course, led to some of the private and corporate events. And then there's other, booking, agents, talent agents out there that we have profiles on that certainly help with that cause as well. But starting in the bars and the clubs, we're kind of paying our dues. I think everybody has to do that. You don't just become this corporate band or wedding band overnight. You have to kind of pay your dues in the bars, get your name out there, get invited back, build the following. Then that can lead to more exciting things. And I've been very, very fortunate that, last year I told the guys in both my bands, and it's more or less the same musicians in both bands. I said, guys, my goal is to flip the script where we're doing more privates and corporates and fewer bar gigs. And we're starting to see that after 5 years of doing it, we're starting to see that take shape. For some folks, it might be sooner. But yeah, it's just paying your dues, putting your name out there.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree. And people are going to see you and ask. And so what is your main way of keeping those lines of connection open, or even them knowing, like, do you do business cards? You have an online website? Do you do an email list? Like, what is your best way to kind of keep the connection between you and the people that see you?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in Facebook because the targeting capabilities you can do, whether you love it or hate it.
Yeah.
A lot of our demographic, my kids would say we're the older, we're not boomers, but they'd call us boomers. The older demographic, they would never step foot inside Facebook or never go to Facebook, But for the Gen Xers and the younger boomers and even the late millennials, right? There's that demographic that's a sweet spot for Facebook, and within Facebook, you can say, hey, I want to target everybody that's a fan of Prince, Journey, Bon Jovi that lives in a 15-mile radius of this bar that we're playing at next weekend. And that's what I do. And I put these Facebook ads together. And I might spend $30 Okay. And then, so I'll boost the event. It's been 30 bucks. I typically try to ever go over 50 bucks unless I'm really trying to blow it out of the water. But I
Mm.
was like, okay, that's a small manageable number. Hopefully we make that, if one or two people tip us, then it's paid for itself, right? But then what'll happen on these Facebook events, you'll see, 50 people said they were interested, 100 people said they're interested. Of those 100, 30 said that they were going. And so they give you these cool stats back. And so I can actually see, at least directionally, hey, is this working? Are people actually showing interest? And then we always encourage folks to hit the like button because, when they do that, then you have a fan for life and it doesn't cost you anything extra because once they follow you, then you can obviously show your not your ads. Ads is something you pay for. You show your posts, right? They see your posts and it becomes into their feed organically, right? So now you have a fan and it might have cost you 25 cents for that fan, you know, but now you have that fan for life. Until you piss them off. To keep them happy. No, but again, you build that following, and so like my '90s country band's a great example. Being in the Dallas area, country music's pretty popular down here, and I have built in a year and a half, So we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary next month. I've gotten to over 3,200 followers on Facebook, and so it's really easy to push out events and happenings, and here's a new cover that we released or whatever. And people are weighing in, they comment, and they love feeling a part of it. So Facebook has been really huge. There's another one I use called Bands in Town. Have you heard of Bands in
Oh
Town?
yeah, for sure.
Okay. It's free. I mean, they have some premium services, but I don't think we spend a dime on it. And they give us widgets to capture email addresses, which
Hmm.
is so cool because if you go to, I'll give you an example, like my 80s band, it's 80sgadgets.com. And we have a calendar page. Go to 80sgadgets.com/calendar. At the very top, it says follow us. And they click it. It says, hey, boom, what's your email address? Hey, thank you so much for subscribing. And then it'll basically send out the emails for you on your behalf as you add dates. So I don't even have to crack open an email program. It happens automatically just by them capturing the lead. And it doesn't cost me anything to do that. That's a free service that they offer. So I'm a huge fan of Bands in Town as well.
Yeah, that's really useful. I mean, the fact that you want to know when this band is coming back or when they're going to be at this event, at this place again. Bands in Town's a great way to do that. So that's a great suggestion. Well, I want to jump into the other thing that you do, which is like the main thing that you do, which is right there on the screen. If you guys are watching, it's called Black Box Prompter. And I'd love to have you tell the story of how this came to be because I know it had to do with kind of reducing distractions on stage and like just stuff, you know what I mean? Like iPads and music stands, those drive me crazy on stage. And how this helps you guys run your band and why you feel like it's something that could really be helpful to a lot of musicians that perform.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. Wow. So where do I start? There's so many things to talk about. This is a very touchy subject, by the way. Anybody that's seen, cover bands, tribute bands, even some pros out there, they'll have a tablet or a phone in front of them, sometimes blocking their view, sometimes like right in front of their face. And to me, looking out from the audience is such a distraction. It just takes the wind out of my sails. When I'm trying to watch this pro here, and there's no shame in leaning on lyrics. First of all, I want to dispel that myth right now. People say, "Oh, you don't memorize your lyrics, you're not professional." Well, newsflash: the vast majority of your pros filling out arenas to this day will still have teleprompters and teleprompter technicians, big jumbo commercial size teleprompters. In fact, there's an article that says 50 well-known artists, known to use teleprompters that you can find on our blog on blackboxprompter.com. You go to the blog and we have we have that article. So that is a legit thing. No shame in looking at lyrics. But what I would say there could be shame in is if you make it stupid obvious and you're glued to that crutch, where you're constantly looking at it and you didn't do your homework or it's in your face. That's when it becomes an issue. So what I decided to do is I teamed up with a friend of mine who's a drummer, and he's a wicked smart guy that's also a computer developer. And he and I launched the concept of Black Box Prompter. So what that does, it gets the tablet out of your face, puts it on the floor in this nice cabinet, 24-inch screen with a shatterproof shield. So to the audience's perspective, it just looks like a speaker wedge, like a speaker monitor, and they have no idea. And so you control it. You don't squat down to try to touch the thing. You have foot pedals, and so you need to go to the next page. You just tap on the foot pedal. You need to go back. You can click back. You need to go to you need to pull up a set list. You can pull up your set list, the songs in order. It's all controlled through just three buttons on a foot pedal, and the audience never knows it's even there. Really, it's practically invisible. And I got the idea. Two things. Well, I'll tell you what gave me the idea, and then I'll tell you what really reinforced the idea. What gave me the idea was when I started the '80s band, my brother didn't want to have he didn't want to be that guy with the tablet in front of his face. He wanted an open view for the audience to see him, and it's in his entirety. He doesn't want to have anything distracting him. So he ended up taking a cardboard shipping box from Amazon, and cut it up, took black duct tape, wrapped black duct tape all around it, to where it didn't look like a cardboard box. And he took his iPad and he rested his iPad, at a slight angle inside this box, and had these three kind of Bluetooth foot pedals to navigate. And that's what he used as his poor man's teleprompter. And people not once did they ever bring that up. Like, why are you cheating? Why are you looking at your lyrics? Because nobody knew, because it was so hidden from the audience. And so I thought that was pretty brilliant. Well, I show my rocket scientist friend, the drummer friend, what he was doing as a makeshift teleprompter. And he's like, "Oh my gosh." He goes, "I was just thinking about this very same thing." And he said, I have a box from the UK that's been around that's very similar, and it's heavy and it's clunky, and I'm just not a fan. I was like, "Man, if we could build a better version of this," I was like, I would market the hell out of it. I really would. And the very next day, he got the prototyping and started cutting it out. And then 2 months later, we made our debut at the International Guitar Festival in Dallas. And that was in May of 24. And it was one of the most popular booths. And so many folks were just like, wow, it's about time. And so all this to say, we're trying to replace the iPad as the industry standard, or the music stand as the industry standard, to get it out of the face and get it onto the floor, so you're not obstructing the audience's view.
Oh, yeah. I think there's so much use for this. We were talking earlier about churches. I think that's a great use for it, because you were mentioning about how the person who's running the slides forgets to advance the slide. Like, a lot of times at a church, the singers especially are relying on the slide person to advance their slides, because they don't want to have all this music and music stands and all that stuff. And so this is a way that could be handled, where if that person, shirked their duties, you can just go ahead and advance it from the stage. So I think that's a really cool use for it. Are you finding, like, certain groups of people are like immediately like, "Oh my gosh, yes," and other people you're having to like educate why they would need this? Maybe they're not using anything right now, or they're using paper or something.
Yeah, we see the whole gamut. And I do want to touch on one more thing regarding the churches. Yeah, so churches, that's a huge market for us. I think churches are really going to enjoy this, because it gives the folks on the stage in the sanctuary, it gives them the opportunity to be in control of when to turn the page, and not rely on the volunteer that maybe didn't have his second cup of coffee. And so it really helps them. And then I could geek out and tell you about how we can synchronize multiple boxes. So you have the
or your
worship
volunteer
leader
doesn't show up. We had that happen.
yes, that happens too. But it puts it in control. Super easy to use. And then that way you have the chords, the lyrics, everything you need, and you can have the worship leader change the page for everybody. You have 3 or 4 boxes all connected wirelessly, all synced up wirelessly, and you can have one person change the page for everybody, so everybody literally stays on the same page. Nobody's getting off track. So there are some really cool features built into this thing. You can transpose chords. Maybe one person's playing with a capo, or maybe the singer's like, "Hey, can we bring this down half a step?" So you can transpose chords on this thing as well. So, and all the software is built in. You don't have to go download anything. I mean, we have free updates that you can download from time to time, but you don't have to install anything. But getting back to your other question, Bree, yeah. So I do want to share. Can I, if I share my screen, will those that are
It'll be on the video. Yeah,
it'll be on the video. Cool. So This is a real picture of one of my buddies' band I shot last year. This is not staged, by the way, but I saw these guys, and this is in the Dallas area, and this gentleman here, he continues to rely on his iPad, and this guy right here, I don't think he knew the song very well, and like literally like leaned into it. And I'm just like, but these guys are not alone. This happens every weekend at a bar somewhere across America, multiple times over. And so I call it the three sins.
I love that swiping, squinting, scrolling.
Yeah. And so we're trying to rid the cover band scene, or any live performer for that matter. It doesn't have to be a cover band. Anybody who would like the luxury of a visual cue, again, no shame in that. But I want to rid them of making it a distraction, getting it on the floor. And so this picture to me really speaks volumes of what really motivated me to start the company.
That's awesome. And there's no shame in needing your chords or your lyrics. Like, especially with a cover band, you want to have a big set list so you can offer, the opportunity for people to make requests. And you can't keep all that in your brain. I'm sorry. So there's absolutely in my opinion, no problem with needing something like this. And this is a way you can do it without looking like this photo right here.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Awesome.
so I just kind of want to mention that this is happening a lot. These guys are not by themselves in this.
Yeah,
So
yeah, totally. So I did want to ask, because we were talking earlier about the QR code and the tips and all that stuff with the requests, and you said that that's a feature that's coming to this box. Like, how is that going to work?
Yeah, so very very similar to some of the iPad apps that exist today, but essentially we're going to put it onto the box. So what'll happen is you'll have a QR code that you can scan. It'll pull up the list of songs, and you'll have the option to say, hey, for this song, tip $10 or whatever, or they could fill in the blank, tip whatever amount they want. Now they will the audience member doing the request will need to at least one time connect it to a Venmo account or Zelle or an Apple Pay, because we need some way to accept the digital currency, right?
Right.
But that's just a one time deal. Once they do that, then they can request it, and what'll happen is it'll send a message to the box. So the musicians on stage will say, "Hey," it'll have their name, it'll have how much they tipped, and it'll have the name of the song request. And so as a musician on stage, we need to make sure we give a shout out to that person because they just took the time to tip us, based on what we do. But it makes it really easy, and it takes a matter of seconds. I mean, once they're already connected to a payment system, it's super easy to make that request. So that's we are gonna be launching that later in 2025. And then there's another feature that I want to talk about that we're going to be launching before the tipping app, and this doesn't exist anywhere else. But and this is the first show I've announced this on, so it'll be ready here in a couple months. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but we're talking right now. It's January of 2025, but this will be coming very very soon. We're calling it Sing Along, and Sing Along, you as an audience member, you scan a QR code, and then boom, the lyrics appear for you, the audience member, in real time, so you can sing along with the band. So we're like, oh, it's kind of like karaoke, but how often do you hear? So I'm vaguely familiar, and the chorus comes, and you kind of know the chorus, but you kind of want to sing along with the verses too, right? Now you'll be able to. You actually, from the comfort of your smartphone, you'll be able to actually sing along with the band, and all the lyrics will be right there.
That's super fun. And how many songs that, we've heard for years, do you realize I don't actually know what these lyrics say? It might be kind of fun to read them.
Yeah, exactly. And so we just make it that much easier. They don't have to search for the song. Again, it's literally a scan of a QR code, and then boom, they'll appear in the palm of their hand.
That's really cool. Now, I know you said that you had this story about someone getting $1,000 tip. So I need to know about this story.
Yes. Wow. I love telling the story. It blows my mind. So a couple years ago, my 80s band, we were just it's just an average night. We're just playing, doing our thing, playing our top 40, 80 song. We might be playing, Don't Stop Believing or Rebel Yell or Purple Rain. And so we break for our set, and my sound guy comes running over to the stage. Do you have access to your Venmo? Because we have the QR code to scan to command Venmo. I go, yeah. What's going on? He's like, this lady said that she just tipped $1,000 and she wanted to make sure it went through. And I'm like, Andy, that's not funny. Don't joke with me like that. Don't quit your day job as a sound guy. Quit trying to be a comedian. That's not funny. He goes, I'm being serious. She said she tipped you $1,000. And so I was like, well, give me a second. And I had to disconnect because, with wireless, you're on your local network. You're not connected to the internet, right? So I had to disconnect. Yeah, I was like, it took me a couple minutes. Okay, let me get out to the internet. Okay, boom, I'll get out to the internet. And sure enough, it said she shipped $1,000.
My God.
And I about fainted, And I was like, what? So I'm on break. And so I was like, well, point me out to this lady. Who is she? I want to meet her. And he's like, oh, she came from this table. And so I meet her friends. So she had gone outside, but I talked to her friends. I go, is it true? What's the story? Why would she tip us so much? She goes, well, she just lost her husband about a month ago. And this was the first time that she has gotten out. She's been in such severe depression. This was the first time that she got out to do any kind of social activity. And she goes, you guys made her feel so good and made her smile so big that she wanted to get back. She felt it was the right thing to do.
Oh.
And I was just like, wow. She said she's having the best time she's had in ages. And at that point, it wasn't $1,000. Let me get choked up telling the story. It wasn't $1,000. It was just that heartfelt, touching moment of like, God, music moves people in ways you don't even realize. Even if you're playing silly cover songs, it moves people. And for her to feel compelled to tip us that much, I was just over the moon. I was blown away. And so,
yeah, I mean, this is
but that really happened
to
yeah.
what I was saying before about how we don't have to feel like it's a step down, or we don't have to feel like, I'm just doing this until I get to do my original music or whatever. Like, we are giving a gift with cover songs, I think, if they're done really well. And obviously this lady really benefited from it.
Yeah. But I don't think we'll ever top the $1,000 tip. I mean, we've gotten some $50 and $100 tips, but 1,000, that blew my mind. But anyway, it was reassurance that what we're doing is not in vain. What we're doing, there is more to it. I mean, yeah, making some extra money is absolutely nice. We all have to eat, and that's great. But we aren't in it purely for the money, okay? And that first and foremost. And I established that early with my guys. I said, guys, don't expect to totally quit your day job with this, please. But you can have a hell of a lot of fun doing this and make some extra mailbox money on the side.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I always say, being profitable, it's not just for people that are full time. Like, the point of being profitable, making some money, is that it encourages you to keep going and also allows you to do things like, buy extra gear, buy yourself a black box prompter, like whatever you need to do the show well and make it easier and more fun. That's what being profitable is about. So that's why this show is not just about full-time musicians and hardcore, making money and all that stuff. It's about how we can do it in a way that makes it easier and better for us. So thank you so much for all this. This has been such a great episode. How can people find you online?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just type in on the web, go to the website, blackboxprompter.com. We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/blackboxprompter, as well as Instagram. And if anybody's listening is interested in learning more about the Black Box Prompter and purchasing one, we are running a 10% off promotion for the listeners of this podcast. So simply enter the promo code Bree, BREE, and that'll get you 10% off of your entire purchase.
Awesome. We'll have all of that in the show notes for sure as well. But yeah, I see so many uses for this. So I'm so glad that we were able to talk about that and even show it on YouTube if you guys were watching on YouTube. So if you didn't get to see it, if you're listening and you want to see it on YouTube, go find this episode on YouTube and check it out. Thanks so much, Tory. This has been so fun. Such a great conversation. I love talking to people that are trying to help musicians, trying to come up with innovative ways to keep us moving forward and making more music. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Profitable Musician Show. I would love to know your takeaways and aha moments from this episode. Leave me a comment over at profitablemusician.com so I can bring you more of the information, interviews, and resources that you love. Thanks to Rondi Fay, one of my Academy members, for providing the music for our podcast. You can check her out at rondifay.com. That's RANDIFAY.com. Just remember, knowledge is power, but without implementation, it is useless. And inspiration without action is merely entertainment. But I know you're not just a dreamer, you are a doer. And I promise I'll be here every week to support you and remind you that you can be a profitable musician.